Do you want to grow your potential user base for your web app by 1 billion people? Then you should consider making it accessible. Accessibility isn't just about being inclusive. It's about making sure that everyone can use the applications that we build. According to the World Health Organization, currently around 2.5 billion people rely on assistive technology. And this number is even projected to grow to 3.5 billion by 2050. But it's not only numbers, it's also regulation. In the US, the Department of Justice requires local and government sites to be accessible. And in the EU, the Accessibility Act requires the same thing starting this year in 2025. So as we can see, accessibility is both a legal requirement, but it also means making sure our app is usable by all of our users. So in this video, we'll take a look at 5 different ways to make our web apps accessible, and I'll even share a bonus tip in the end, so make sure you stay that long. So right after you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, we can get started. Ready? Let's get started with the first tip. In the first example, we want to explore how to use semantic structure correctly and add landmarks if necessary. So let's take a direct look. I have VS Code opened here and this HTML page is displayed on the right. We have a body here which has, well, a lot of divs mainly. So we have a div class of top, a div which has the class of nav, so probably indicating it's a navigation bar, and then a list of elements, and then we have a div class of content with a headline, and yeah. So the problem here is that these elements don't have their correct semantic meaning. So if we want to do this in a better way, we could replace this with these elements. So here we have a header. So this means it's shown at the top. We have a nav element with an ARIA label of primary. So this indicates clearly to things like screen readers that this is a navigation element. Then we have a list of links here that show the link to the respective pages. And then we have the main content with a main element, and we have a footer element. So if we scroll down here, we see this is the main content and we have the footer showing. But also we have one more thing, which is a skip to main content link, which is not shown here, because we added a style to it, which says it's positioned absolute, and on the left we show it way moved to the left side and very small. But if it's in focus, we want to have it as the static positioning with the width and the height of auto. So what this allows us to do is we can now switch to the browser here and hit the tab element, and we can see there is the skip to main content button. And if we click on that, for example, using the enter button, we jump directly to the main element. So this becomes useful when someone wants to navigate our page, for example, with the keyboard, and they don't always want to tab through all the navigation bar and the elements there. So we can easily jump to the main content, and through the semantic elements, we can also tab through here, go to home, go to reports, and just follow the structure only using the keyboard, which we get for free if we use correct semantic elements. This has been the first tip, so let's get on with the next one. The second tip is that we should always ensure that keyboard operability without mouse support is well supported. So in this example, I created a div here with the class button for potential styling, and on click we call the save function, which for now gives us a console log. So this works well, so I can click here, and if I go to the console log, we see this got clicked. But first of all, it doesn't really show up as a button here. And if I tab to select this, nothing happens. So the problem here is that any screen reader or any assistive technology won't recognize that this is a button, because it is in fact not. It is a div. So how we can better do this is by using the button class or the button element. And we can say the type here is clearly button, and on click we want to save. So if I save the file, we already see we get this default styling. But also if I tab here, you can see the focus jumping towards this element, And if I want to show the logs again, if I tap here and hit enter, the save clicked appears. So users can now navigate this way better and control the site with their keyboards. However, sometimes it might be necessary to not be able to use a button. But we can also be better when we use something like a div here. For example, we can assign it a role. So the role in this case could be button. And we can assign a tab index element, meaning that this is tabbable. So if we tab through our page, this will be focused. We also give it an ARIA label, so not only a text, but also an ARIA label. And then we can say we have the element that we get in JavaScript here, and we add an event listener, which can be either enter or the space key, and then we call our save function. So if I save here, we see another button appearing, we tab, we see the first one, we tab again, and we see our custom element is now selected. And if I hit enter or space key, it will also execute the function. And so once we are not able to use a button itself, we can at least do the work necessary to allow that keyboard operability is always ensured. The next tip to ensure accessibility is considered is that we always need to ensure that focus indicators are clearly visible. So if we look at this example, we have a simple form which requires the users to enter their name, email, and city, and they can submit the form. Now, to make things look more clean, we also add the focus of outline to be none. We can go to our app, and if we tab through, we see that the typing indicator is shown here. It's blinking, but the usual focus ring is not shown, which some people might consider to look more clean. And this is possible to switch through, and we can navigate this. However, we're not showing the clear indication that this is focused, which is bad for accessibility reasons. But we even have a way to make this look great for people using assistive technologies, because there is the focus visible pseudo class, which ensures that whenever someone is using a assistive technology device or has this enabled, they will see this. So we can keep our focus outline of none if we want to do this, and at the same time have the focus visible pseudo class, which ensures that people using assistive technologies have the support. So if we go here and we tab through now, we see this large indicator which makes it really clear which of the fields is currently in focus. So this is a very cheap win for us because we specifically target people who might need this and make their life easier at the same time. The next tip is to always ensure that we have the correct alternatives for images and SVGs. The first example is that we have an image showing, which is this one, and we have the alt text of decorative swoosh. So we clearly indicate that this is just a decorative image that doesn't serve any purpose. So the way to better do this would be to leave the alt text empty. Because what this does is once there is no alt text, the browser already assumes that this is just a decorative image, and for people just navigating the web, for example, with color deficiencies or vision deficiencies, they will not see this image shown. We could also add the ARIA hidden label, which has the same effect. But in this case, leaving the alt text empty would be a valid approach as well. And as we can see, if we scroll down, this is just shown as before for the rest of the user base. The second example here is the chart here, which is also shown as an image, which is fine. Like it has a source and it has an empty alt text, so it wouldn't be shown to people using assistive technologies in that case. However, here there is a clear information being shown and communicated to the user, which would be lost if somebody wouldn't see this. So in that case, we have the option to add a more relevant alt text. For example, not saying something like, hey, this is a chart, but we clearly communicate what we want to give users here. So an example could be the revenue grew from 2.1 million in Q1 to 3.4 million in Q4. So clearly indicating what this should communicate to users. And here we also see if we have SVGs, we can set this aria hidden to be true and the focusable thing to be false. So this does a similar thing. And the last example here is that if we have a button that is a SVG, so in this case it shows this download option here, we don't really communicate what this does. And while it might be clear for people with vision that this should be a download link or a download button, to other people it might not be that clear. For example, specifically if this is not shown. So in that case, we can say we have a button which is of type button and we give it an ARIA label. For example, it could say download report PDF. Let me save this quickly. So yeah, we see it at the bottom here. It has this clear ARIA label, clearly communicating this is a button, and if you click on this, it gives you a report as a PDF. And then for the SVG inside, we give it the ARIA hidden label to be true, so it won't be shown, but the purpose of this button is very clearly communicated. And with this, we can easily fix our images with very minimal effort, making the experience for people using assistive technologies so much better. The last tip is about motion, and it means we should always respect the user's preferences, but also give them control whether we want to autoplay videos or animations. And for that, let's take a look at this beautiful animation that I've built. So we have a div here of class hero, which has this beautiful animation, which is, well, simply using keyframes. So we just translate the Y dimension with this hero element. Now, there is an option for users to select that they don't want to see motion because that might make them sick, causing any problems with them. So we have the option to actually enable the prefers reduced motion property, which people who might suffer from this will probably have activated. And if we activate this, we see this is not great. Nothing is happening. Why is that? And it's pretty simple, because we're not respecting this. We always show this animation. So we can do better here by simply adding this to our CSS. So we can say whenever prefers reduced motion is set to reduce, which we have just done, we want to set the animation duration to be 0 seconds. We can also do this differently. This is just the way I intend to do it now. And if we save this, we see this will stop. And if this will be deactivated, we see the animation happening again. And with that, it's disabled. So this means we automatically respect this whenever someone has this activated, but there might also be the option that people will simply want to deactivate this for other reasons. And for that, we can do this as well. For example, we could add a button here to pause the animations. We can add a script to this and, for example, do something like whenever someone clicks on the button there, we select the element, we toggle the class list and we say no animation there. And then we can change the content of the button to say resume animations. And we add a no animations or no anim class here. And now we can also pause animations like this. Let me deactivate this for now, that the animation is shown. And I can tab now, hit enter, and the animation will stop. And if I hit the spacebar again, it will play again. With that, we not only respect if a user has selected this for whatever reason, but also we give users the option to pause animations that might cause distractions for them or even make them feel uncomfortable. Since you stayed so long, I want to give you a bonus tip. And for that, we take a look again at my beautiful app that I've created. And I am a little bit of a designer, you know, so I added some beautiful gray design to my application. And you might see the problem with this, because the color contrast is just not on par. So if you have some color deficiencies or like visual disorders, then this won't look great for you. And there's actually one way that we can analyze this, which I want to show you really quick. And we can open up the debugging tools here and go to Lighthouse. And we can do the Lighthouse score. We're not interested in performance, best practices, or SEO, but just accessibility. We run this. It will take a second to do this. But once it's finished, we can see, oh, there is a contrast problem. And it says background and foreground colors do not have sufficient contrast ratio. And it specifically mentions the H1. We can take a look at it. It says the P element as well as the other ones. So this is a problem, of course, because people might not be able to see what's on screen. And luckily, we can pretty easily fix this by ensuring that we have the correct contrast here. So we can say text colors, surfaces accent colors, and then change this. And so now this should look way better. So let's quickly analyze this again with the Lighthouse score. So let's see if it still says that there is some contrast problems. And it's disappeared, so we still have accessibility problems because this is not a full HTML, but we at least have fixed the contrast issues, so we can ensure that everyone can enjoy our colors of our beautifully designed apps. This marks the end of our 5 quick accessibility tips for web applications. Before we end the video, I quickly want to show you that there is much more to consider here. So if you are interested in that, please consider going to the W3 and checking the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. The latest version is 2.2. Many times it's also mentioned that there's 2.1 as a necessity, but feel free to take a look because there's so much more there that we should do. And if you're interested in more videos like this, then please leave a comment below so that we know that we should cover more of this. But for now, thanks a lot for following this video and see you in the next one. Bye bye.